So I'm going to pose this to you this time. Dude, are the Grizzlies serious? Can the Grizzlies be taken serious this year?
Oh, absolutely. And I think what they've been able to do this season is just outright phenomenal. I mean, there's been a lot of focus paid to John Morant, who's just having a phenomenal year, an MVP caliber season. But I think we have to dive into this team a little bit more, and we got to focus on some other players outside of John Morant. I mean, John Morant, granted, he's dealing with an injury right now, but guys who don't get a lot of shine, Desmond Bain. Desmond Bain, since Ja's been out of the lineup for the last couple of games, he's been going out there and been playing phenomenal basketball. Granted, they were playing against the Nets just a couple of nights ago. He was essentially the leading force for that team to get that win against the Nets at home. And then the game right after, they played the Pacers on Thursday night, and he put up another 30 points. So he's going out there and doing what he needs to do. Not only that, when you look at some other role players that Memphis has on their roster, look at guys like Jaren Jackson Jr., DeAnthony Melton, Kyle Anderson, Tyus Jones. I mean, I don't think a lot of people, unless they're like diehard Grizzly fans, are gonna really know like who these role players are for Memphis. They might know Steven Adams just because Steven Adams was a pretty solid force for the Oklahoma City Thunder a couple years ago, and he's their main force at the center position. But when it comes to like some of the role players that I mentioned in DeAnthony Melton, Kyle Anderson, and Tyus Jones, and maybe Jaren Jackson Jr., these are names that you might hear in passing every now and then, but you don't think of as like really solid basketball players. That is not the case. These guys can ball out, and these guys are extremely effective at knocking down open shots and even contested shots as well. And that's what you're going to have to look for with Memphis going into the last stretch of the season and going into the playoffs. These guys, if they want to be taken seriously in the playoffs, these guys are going to have to knock down open jump shots, and they're going to have to hit these contested jump shots, because the one thing that we're going to have to focus on we're going to have to focus on pretty significantly with the Grizzlies this playoff run is, can they rise to the occasion and exceed expectations when it comes to the playoffs? Just because that Western Conference is so stacked from top to bottom. The Grizzlies are in a great position, but they kind of have limited playoff experience with the guys that they have on the roster. This is going to prove to me whether or not that they're ready for showtime in the playoffs. In the regular season, it's one thing, because the regular season, you can showcase what you're worth just because teams aren't necessarily playing what I would say top caliber defense during the regular season. But when it comes to the playoffs, this team is going to have to adjust to a different pace, typically because playoff games are played at a slower pace and there's more pressure in each individual play. If these guys can rise to the occasion and play stellar basketball despite that change in pace when it comes to the playoffs, this team, I think, could make not only a Western Conference Finals appearance, but they could threaten to possibly make the finals if they play great basketball in these pressure moments during the playoffs. But all in all, just what the Grizzlies have been able to do this season is outright phenomenal. If Phoenix wasn't having the phenomenal season that they're having, Memphis could arguably be one of the few teams that could get that number one seed when it's all said and done. It's just that the Suns are just so far and away beating everybody else for that number one seed. Memphis really isn't in that position. But all in all, this team is great from top to bottom. They have John Morant at the head of the pack, who's having an MVP caliber season. And they could really do some great damage in the playoffs just because these guys are hungry. They know it, and they are not going to back down from anybody, despite the fact that their main player in John Morant is out for the next couple games as he recovers from his injury. These guys are for real, and do not sleep on this team. They can make some noise when it comes to the playoffs this year.
Whenever I think of the Memphis Grizzlies, I remember the Zach Randolph days, the Mike Conley, the Mike Gasol. Granted, that was only maybe a little bit less than 10 years ago, but I remember a gritty, physical, not too flashy offensive team. And then you look at this team now, and this team can light you up. I mean, six people averaged 10 plus points this year for them. I mean, Jaren Jackson Jr. is the lead shot blocking leader. Ja Morant is an MVP candidate. I mean, Desmond Bain is one of the league's best shooters in terms of consistency and percentage. You're talking about a multitude threat team that can hit you from every single aspect. I mean, they're gritty on the defensive side like the old days, not as physical, but they still have that presence of creating turnovers, getting on the break. And I mean, they have some athleticism now. It's not just a physical duo in the post back then like it was the Gasol and Zebo days. Bro, for the most part, 1 through 4 can fly through the air. Desmond Bain can finish at the rim. We all know John Morant can jump over somebody and is just itching at the bit to put somebody on a damn poster. We all know that they have the capability to shoot the basketball. And it's absolutely insane how this team is just flown under the radar for so long because they aren't the Lakers, because they're not the Suns, because they don't have a consistent and regular superstar. Ja Morant is having a come out breakout season. So with him kind of being known for his athleticism, he's not really known as somebody that's going to go out there and carry a team. But he's been in the league for a couple of years now. The team has been to the postseason before. The coaching staff is well aware and well prepared to do what needs to be done in order to prepare for this team to be ready for whoever it is they face in the playoffs. And I agree with Kyle 100%. That's definitely a Western Conference Finals team. I can definitely see the Memphis Grizzlies fighting for a finals appearance. I don't see why not. They have all the pieces, they have all the players, and they have everything that they need to accomplish that. So I'm going to definitely go out there and agree and say that, they have a lot riding for them. They do have to kind of get over that injury bug, and their biggest thing is going to be experience. But if they can find a way to get over that hump, they're a competitive and a team that they should fear for sure.